So here comes my next customer. Couple little issues. This customer had a few concerns and then wanted me to kind of go over everything and take a little look at it, a little safety inspection. And overall, it's pretty good shape for an old car. I noticed a couple little things. I think right here is a crack, and not crack cocaine. A little crack there, and then same spot over here. A little crack right there. Which, with this brace on here, I mean, it probably be okay, but cracks are no bueno, so definitely need to pull that off there and fix that. And then came in for a kind of a hard start on when it was hot. So I'm replacing the battery cables. These battery cables are pretty small. I had this little ground on there. That's probably about a 4 gauge, and I'm going to 1. But had the ground just going from the battery to the little stud right there. I always like to put a ground on the either the tranny or the engine itself. You can see it's got a bunch of grounds right here. So that's where all your sensors and everything runs through the engine. So I'm going to ground that up. It has 2 batteries on it, which is pretty cool. Another one right there, and the same thing, the little ground is just going to the battery tray. So although it's all kind of welded together, I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm going to run that one to the tranny, the other one to the motor, and then replace all the positives and get some bigger cabling on there. And then looking through some other stuff, notice the reverse switch. So he probably has a counter up there. It's got a sequential, so that reverse switch is broken. So there's no indicator on that. Notice some grease coming out over here. A little bit of grease, and you can see, I don't know if you can pick that up, but those two are moving independent of each other. So those bolts are definitely loose. So I got to pull that boot, tighten up his CV. This side seems to be okay. Not leaking, and they're both moving the way they're supposed to. Notice this guy is really old looking, kind of sun damaged, and underneath it is completely cracked. All the way around here is all cracked. So that's ready to break apart and cause a fire. And then same thing with, there's another hose up on top. Oh, looks like this one's been replaced. It's nice and soft. But definitely need to put a fuel line on there. And then, I don't know where that goes. Yeah, just a couple little things here and there. The throttle was sticking on it. Let me lower this down. One moment. So he was feeling a little bit of a sticky pedal, and the throttle was kind of sticking. And when I first took this apart, I already fixed this. I probably should have filmed that, but I forgot. But this cable was like way over here, and it was pulling at an angle on the throttle plate. So it was actually pulling this out, and the butterfly inside there, the throttle plate, was rubbing on the housing, and it was sticking. You can actually feel it, just barely giving it any gas like that. You feel it scraping. So I straightened this back out and actually angled it just a tiny bit in, and then this spring right here will kind of help it to pull it in. this spring isn't doing us any favors pulling it out, so I could probably adjust that down there. So I might try and push that in to get everything to force the throttle plate in, but you can tell already it's definitely smoother. And then this is the other fuel line I was talking about. You can tell this thing is super old, and there's just riddled with cracks in there. So all you need is a little pinhole, starts leaking gas, and then it catches fire. So that's scary stuff. Other than that, it's kind of a cool car. It's got some billet accessory package on here, which is neat. This is just a cover, but it goes over the water pump. Nice billet cover. It's kind of interesting how it routes the belt on here, keeps it super tight. So this is Trick Racing. I've never heard of. I've heard of Sand Tricks, but Trick Racing. And this was back in the day when everybody was building cars. I think this, he said it was 05 or 06, which is the heyday. But this is a really, really nice car. Really cool how everything's laid out. So it's got some problems with the switches not working. Just some little stuff. I pulled the hood, and the wiring is, it's so-so. I guess they used a lot of these big huge weather packs, so it's just a big clump right there, but at least it's all kind of tied up nice. You can tell some of the stuff that was added on was like, not a big fan of that just sitting there bouncing and hitting the motor, so I'll tie some of that stuff up while I got it all out. Your hood off, I mean. Excuse me. And then the stuff over here just dangling. I don't like stuff rubbing on the steering. We'll tie all that up. And then his reverse lever, which is down there. Right now it's okay, but he runs his seat further forward, and absolutely impossible to get to it in between there. So I'm just going to make a new handle that sticks up higher, or I can even angle it forward or something. That's a terrible place for it. I'm going to get that fixed up, and he'll be ready to go. But yeah, really neat car. Big and heavy. He wants to do wheelies. I'm like, need a lot of power for wheelies on this car. Look how big everything is. Man, it's gigantic. So this is basically like a pre-runner style. Cool car, but definitely heavy. I will keep going. Got the battery cables all stripped down. The battery's just chilling in there. So kind of a cool setup actually. I use this cutoff switch, which this thing is beefy. It says 500 amps at 36 volt max. So very, very heavy duty. So you got battery 1, battery 2, and then common. So obviously you just hook up your 2 batteries to here, and then over here when you put it on both, to run both batteries, you can turn it off, or you can select one or the other. So kind of cool deal. So these are the cables that were on there, and they're just a little small. These are regular battery cables. There's a difference between battery cables and welding wire, which is what I like to use. This welding wire has way more wire count in it. It's a lot more flexible. I mean, if you think about welders, they have a lot of amperage going through them. So you can see, hopefully the camera kind of picks that up, that it's considerably larger. So that should help his starting problem. But he had one battery on the other side, and that comes over to the switch that was right here, and then this battery comes up to the switch, and then those 2 commons went to a lug that was in the middle, and then there was a couple different power wires all going to that, and then from that little lug it went right to the starter. So actually a pretty clean wiring job on this thing. I like it. We've gotten into some wiring jobs that are absolutely atrocious. Go back and watch some of my videos. Well, the video on this customer's car that I'm putting an engine in, that's the next series. This one's back again. I'm going to put a motor in this one. But the wiring on that car was absolutely horrible. That car was ready to burn to the ground. I'm not even joking. There was wires melted all over the place. Just too small of wires for the amount of amperage that was feeding all these different circuits. So this one seems to be okay. Those cables aren't nearly big enough. So I'll rewire it pretty much exactly the same way they had, except for the grounds. I'm gonna hook up just a little bit different. Like I showed before, they're going just to a lug on the battery tray. I'm not crazy about that. So I will keep plugging away. Alright, so this is my setup. So I got this from Harbor Freight. I'm sure you can get this kit on Amazon, Harbor Freight, wherever you want to go. It's just your basic little hydraulic crimper. It's kind of weird that they would have a hydraulic crimper for teeny little wire like that. It makes no sense whatsoever. This says 7, but that's way smaller than a 7. So I kind of customized mine a little bit. I just found that the jaws really weren't, I mean, that says 2 gauge, but that is absolutely tiny for a 2 gauge. So I just ground mine, kind of customize it a little bit, make it fit a little bit better. But yeah, these are very affordable, and just peel off a little bit of the conductor or the sheathing on there, and dang it, trying to get that put on there with one hand is a little challenging. There we go. Be sure and put your heat shrink on first. Some people say solder those, and I used to do that a lot until I was kind of learned a little bit better. You really don't want to solder this because the solder makes it extremely brittle right here. It has to be able to flex and move around under vibration and stuff so it doesn't break. So the best thing to use is just use a crimper and just slide it on there and then crimp it up. So let's see if we can do this. Tighten it first. Make sure it's down. And then give her a little angle. There we go. And that's crimped on there. Cables are all done. So we got one battery on the other side running all the way across and up into the switch, and then obviously this battery into the switch, and then one coming out goes into the middle. A little lug on there that powers up the rest of the car and then goes to the starter. So pretty clean. Happy with the way it turns out. It's all black because of the welding place that I went to. They only carry black, but you can get red welding wire. I know Amazon carries it, but that's why I put the red heat shrink on the positive ones, and then got black heat shrink on the grounds. No big deal. They're really not going to be getting confused on that. And then you can run battery 1, battery 2, or both. So obviously most of the time you're just going to run both. So pretty cool. It's clean. I think now I'm going to work on the spindles, or the knuckles, I guess, technically. The whole thing is the knuckle, and then the spindle is the part that the wheel attaches to. But yeah, as I showed before, there's little cracks right inside there. Little cracks on both sides. So you take those off, and really the right way to do this is to strip the whole thing down. So I gotta put the torch on it and get the old powder coat off, weld it, and then repowder coat it, make it look nice. You have to do that with both sides. Little crack right there too, same spot. So that's next. All right, time for a little controversial topic. So this guy's got anti-seize on his studs, and I've heard it both ways. I've heard people say, oh, you're a complete idiot for putting anti-seize on your studs because it's just going to loosen up and your lug nuts are going to fall off. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous. I've been a mechanic all my life, 40 plus years of experience, and I've put my impact on lug nuts and wrenched them off, and they're cross-threaded, and they end up breaking the stud off. And then you blame the last guy, oh, the guy cross-threaded the lug nut on there. No, that's stupid. It's almost impossible to actually cross-thread a lug nut when you put it on unless you're jamming it on with an impact. So the problem is that when you use an impact on a dry stud, metal on metal with no lubricant, and you wrench that thing on there, the speed will actually gall the threads and it'll seize up. And then once that happens, they just run the thing all the way in and let the next guy deal with it. So if you lubricate those with some anti-seize, that will never happen. It'll come off and on nice and easy, especially with these ones because they're pretty long. So I've been using anti-seize on studs for years, and you know, the repeat customers, I've never had a problem with it coming off, and I know the next tech that's going to work on those vehicles that I worked on is never going to have a problem getting a lug nut off. So if you put anti-seize on there, tighten it down, torque it to spec, 100% never going to come off on its own. And the next time you need to take it off with a gun, it'll work. Trust me on that one. Tech tip of the day. So hit these with my oxyacetylene torch. Torched off all the powder coat. Actually goes pretty quick. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off, but they are hot. You can see there's a little bit of residue on there, and it literally just flakes right off. I got a glass beater, so I'll probably throw them in there after they cool down. But you can see, I mean, it takes it all off. Pretty easy. There's some more residue right there. So, and it just flakes right off. So that'll be nice. And now I can get to the crack that was on there. But yeah, these things are very hot. So I'm gonna let those cool down, and I will go work on something else. So these appear to be done. I ground the crack down quite a bit, put a root pass in there, and then went back over the top of it with another pass. And I think that should hold. The last ones were 20 years old almost, so not too shabby. Still need some more practice in my welding. So the guys that built this thing is just, man, I'm more and more impressed the more I look at it. I mean, this is really neat looking, the way they put the brace on that for the tie rod. Smooth it all out for a semi-professional fabricator like myself. It's really cool to see. I mean, this type of stuff takes forever. That is so time consuming to get all that shaped in there. You got this piece, and then this piece all welded together, and then they did a super nice job of smoothing it all out. And I obviously made these on the lathe. Just, man, super nice. So just got to clean them up. I was talking about on the, oh, where's my brush? There we go. See, this kind of stuff here just flakes off, so it's pretty easy to clean that up and get it powder coated. I'll take a grinder, and it's got a little edge on there where it was rubbing a little bit. Just knock that down, and then these will be ready to powder coat. Also, while I was waiting for those to cool down, I redid the reverse lever. I think I showed you guys in the beginning how the reverse lever was stuck in between the seat, and the guy had to move the seat back, and when he moved the seat back, he could barely reach the pedals. So it's kind of a silly design. So all I did was just cut it, angle it forward, super easy, and then I'll powder coat that. It's still a little warm, but yeah, coming along. And I gotta go to Fodrell's and get some fuel lines to get those put on. I got that all taken apart. These fuel lines were toast. They're probably original the way they look. They're all sun faded, and it's kind of scary though. I mean, look at that crack. If that breaks open, it's literally right above the batteries and stuff. That crack springs a little leak, one little spark, and poof, your car's gone. So totally cracked. These are push lock, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm going to replace all these fittings with some regular steel braided, the cloth style like this. It's just -6. I'm getting new fittings, so it's going to be a little bit expensive, but how do you put a price tag on your life, right? So we'll get that buttoned up, button up the fuel system, get them spindles put back on. Look at these arms on this thing, man. Beef. Real nice. So we went from push lock cracked fuel lines to AN fittings. Nice black ones with the black cloth braided hoses. So one there, and then one from the regulator down to here, and then straight across the other side to the pump. So fuel lines are done. And now, I did finish the reverse shift lever. So that's right there, lengthened it. That's actually in reverse, so you see it's way easier to get to. I still got to put a switch on it, and then I gotta finish cleaning these up. Oh, look at that weld. She's so pretty. Finish cleaning these up and then powder coat these, bolt them back on, and the next thing is to figure out what's going on with the lights and the wiring. So I gotta take that center console off and look underneath there and see what's going on. These spindles are done. All powder coated nice. This one's got just a little more texture in it, but pretty much matches the silver sparkly. And this is where the crack was. No more crack. Can't even tell I was in there. So this turned out really good. No crack. So I need to pack the bearings. They're kind of dry. Might as well do it since it's all out. Yeah, there's not a lot of grease in there. So pack the bearings, throw those back on, and then I'll be done with that part. Alright, so diagnosing their little light situation here. This is the dome lights. You can see a little flicker on there, but they're working now. Basically, it has a bad switch or bad contact. But see that hole right there? Yeah, let me turn this back off. Boink! That hole right there. So they had these little screw plugs in there, and they clamped the wire in underneath the screw, which I have no idea why you would do that. It's all smashed and cut into the, luckily this was powder coated, or it would have completely shorted out. But that's fixed-ish. Got to put a switch on there, and then this pretty cool little switch panel right here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get a light. Hold please. Oh look, there's a light right here. Milwaukee. Alright, so that's better. So this overhead console switch panel right here, pretty cool. They hooked up 2 lights per switch with no relay, and that's why they hooked up 2 lights per switch, so they didn't have to have a relay. But now you have 3 switches that you have to hit. So those switches are all bad because I just gave the light itself power and it powered right up. So I got to replace pretty much all of these switches. This one works for the front, and one of these works for the air pump and the transmission pump, but they're all corroded. They're all green inside there, and that's no bueno. See there, green and corroded, so I'm gonna have to make a new switch panel. So I get to go to my favorite store, Fodrell's, and go look for some parts. So you guys want to come with me? Let's go check it out. All right, creeping up on Fodrell's. So if you haven't heard of it, and you have a Sanrail, and you're in the Phoenix area, this is a great place to get parts. So Fodrell Motorsports, located on the corner of Northern and the 101. They've been in business for quite a while. Fodrell's built sand cars and race cars and all kinds of stuff for years. So they actually have a shop in addition to the store here. So let's go in and see what they got. Of course I know what they have because I've been coming here for years. So west side of Phoenix. And right off the bat, we got paddles. And they're primarily for Sanrail stuff, but they do carry some side-by-side stuff also. This is actually what I'm here to get, is some switches. And I've got all kinds of different ones. They have really good high-quality switches too. Switches and wiring and all kinds of fun stuff. Got some real nice electrical panels, CV stuff. There's a bunch of accessories to hang things off of your side-by-side and Sanrail. Fire extinguishers. Got the Kennedy adapter plates and clutches. All kinds of lights. Actually, I need a light too. These ones are pretty cool. These KCs. You can hook those in with Zeus tabs in the middle, or you can bolt them in. I might go with some of those today. Look around and see what else they have. This guy needs some dome lights, a little bit brighter than what he has. Full throttle batteries, Odyssey batteries, rack and pinions. Of course they have fuel and hoses and stuff. They have all the steel braided hoses and fittings in the back. And then pick up some merch while you're here. Got K&N stuff over here, and then have kind of your fab stuff in this area. Bunch of tabs and brackets, all kinds of fun stuff over here. And then the shock section, all kinds of King Fox shocks and accessories for rebuild. And then they have U-bends, a little bit of racing equipment, some race suits, helmets, and stainless steel, aluminum, and mild U-bends. V-bands. Got the little flexi ones, these are cool. Or turbo systems and stuff. Yeah. Here's your little tour of Fodrell's. If you've never been here and you live in the Phoenix area, I highly recommend it. You got absolutely everything you can ask for. Alright, let's see what $200 will buy you. So I bought these switches. They got blue LED on them, so when you turn them on, the light lights up. Kind of cool. So there's 8 of those. I bought 2 relays because I already had 2 relays. So now I got 4 relays, and then these really neat dome lights. I got these in my car, and they're freaking super cool, really bright. Now I get to put all this stuff in. So I think this is a little bit cleaner. Got my dome lights here and here hooked to the first switch. Got to put power onto that guy and it'll work. And then the front lights are on this switch, which goes to a relay. So that one just needs some power. And then these 3 right here are going to the other 3 relays, and that runs all 6 of the front lights. So all I got to do is hook power onto that. And then these guys, we'll have to figure out where the rest of them. One of them's for a whip. And then it's got a fresh air and transmission pump. And then there's probably going to be a couple extras. So yeah, just got to plug all this stuff in. Kind of a little messy, but seems to be fairly decent. And then all 6 of those should work on one switch instead of 3 different switches. I think I'm done. So a little recap. Actually met this guy on Facebook. He had a question about a suspension, and I answered a question, and then he looked me up, and we were talking back and forth about some power adders and stuff like that, and turns out he lives pretty close to me. Brought the car over and did a safety inspection on it. Noticed that the knuckles were cracked. All right, so I took all the powder coat off, ground down the crack, TIG welded those, powder coated them again. They look perfect. And then his lights on the top, there was 3 different switches, 2 for each switch, and only 2 lights were even working. So I ended up replacing the switches. It's kind of a cool switch panel that they had. All the switches were basically kind of gooked up and they were full of sand. So I replaced those and put 4 relays in there. So now we have the first switch goes to the new KC dome lights that I put in. Second switch is the front headlights. Third switch turns on all 6, and then his whip, and then he has a transmission pump and an air pump for your helmets, and a couple extra switches. So that all works now. Added a fuel gauge, fuel level gauge, and this button right here, which controls, oh, I don't have this switch on right now, controls his little bar here, moves it up and down, which is kind of cool. And then back yonder, replaced the battery cables. He had cables on there that were about half the size that they should have been. So put new cables on, and then replaced the fuel lines. He had already replaced some because he put a new gas tank in there. So he had done some of those, but some of these were still old. So put new fuel lines, replaced the other ones. They were all cracked. He had a loose CV joint over here and was flinging out some grease, so I took that off and tightened the CV joint, made sure it had grease in there, fixed that all up, and oh yeah, I also repacked the front wheel bearings. So I think that was about it. Kind of nut and bolt checked it, tightened some stuff up, but this car is legit. I'm so impressed with the sheet metal on this thing. This is all dimpled in so that it matches and it's all level. Nice little effect here that goes outward. Just super nice craftsmanship. He was saying that this is Trick Racing back in the early 2000s built this car, but this was kind of a deluxe model. I guess when they have the J on there, that's a little bit nicer model. So this car is probably well over 100 grand, and you can tell it's built very well. It's got a lot of neat features. Still have to put the windshield back on, but other than that, it's done and buttoned up. So let's see if she'll start. Sounds good. Oh yeah, I had to also fix the reverse lever. That was straight up in between the seat and he couldn't reach it. So got that all fixed up. So she's done and ready to go. So thanks for watching. And next one should be another Dunes video.